Patrick Dierschke. Thank you, first of all, Patrick, for coming on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate it. So I don't know if you've seen the show, but what we do is I call it the elevator pitch. Are you familiar with what that is?
I've heard, yes. I've tried it a couple times.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to jump to a sponsor real quick, get that out of the way. When we come back, we'll have you do your elevator pitch.
Okay.
All right. Hang tight, guys.
All right.
Cool. Whether you're looking to buy or sell, Holscher Ranch Group has you covered. With a dedicated team and a passion for Texas land, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Visit HolscherRanchGroup.com or call 325-899-1403 to get started. Holscher Ranch Group, making land ownership dreams come true 1 acre at a time. Hey guys, pardon the interruption, but if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button to show your support, we'd be very appreciative. Now back to the episode. All right, guys, welcome back. All right, let's do this. So, Patrick, give us your elevator pitch. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Patrick Dierschke. I'm a longtime resident of San Angelo. I am the executive director, founder of San Angelo Family Network, and we advocate for kinship families. These are commonly grandparents raising grandchildren, relatives as caregivers, and so we're support those families out here in the Concho Valley area. My family, we were a foster family for several years. We cared for 10 children throughout that time. Different sibling groups, and really it was a crash course in foster care. So through that and through my other involvement in the foster care system, I found a gap for kinship families. And so that's what San Angelo Family Network is about.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm not sure a lot of people know about that. I mean, when did y'all start this?
Yeah, so 2013, I believe, we just felt, wife came to me, said she had felt a calling to open our home to these families and children. And so we went through the process to be licensed as a foster family, went through the training, spent about 9 months getting everything ready. So there's background checks to be done. We had an extensive home study conducted on our family. That's interviews. I want to hear about all interviews with us, interviews with our children, reference checks. And we, like I said, we had some training to learn about the circumstances that these children are coming from, how to be a partner in that whole system. And we rented our home and we received a call, and it was 2 little girls that came from a town about 100 miles away from here. And it was actually their first day of school.
Whoa. Yeah.
And so they appeared at our home. The caseworker brought them to our home. They had their backpack. They had their notes from their teachers, and walked into our home, handed us the notes, and looked for their rooms.
Wow.
So that was our first kind of, okay, this is not, we weren't trained on this.
Right. Yeah.
So these little girls had been through so much and had been from caregiver to caregiver in kind of unstable homes that they were just, wherever they were, that was home. Yeah. And so it took a little bit for us to kind of understand that and work with them. So, they were with us for 16 months. Oh, wow. And usually the length of time you care for these children, 12 months is when,
is it? Okay.
When children are removed from their parents, they're provided a safety plan that they have to complete, and they're usually given 12 months, and the court can extend that if need be.
Right.
So we were able to do that. And they were reunified with their
that's
father.
good.
So throughout all of this, and that's something I'll be talking about too, we were foster only parents.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have different ones. You have foster only, foster to adopt, and then the kinship. So there's different categories in there.
So let me ask you this. So from my understanding, it's, if the parents are unable to raise their child or children or something going on, let's say CPS gets involved, they pull custody, or maybe they put them on some type of probation program with a caseworker.
Right.
If the child needs to be placed in a different home, the first step is with a relative, right? Immediate relative.
Yeah. So, even before that, if once the CPS, the Department of Family Protective Services, would get involved with a family. If it's not an emergency situation where the health or the physical health of the child is in danger, then they can work with that family without removing the child. And they can present the family, the parents with they're called family-based safety services.
That's right. Okay.
And these are some preventative measures. These are, hey, if you need, we'll help you get a job. We'll help you get some stable housing. If you need to take some classes, parenting classes, domestic abuse classes, those type of things.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they are given that. There is that opportunity.
Yes.
And then when that's happening, and then if it does require that the child is removed, then the family does provide a list of potential caregivers. Potential people that could care for these children.
And it goes down the list, like from grandparents to what?
And it depends on what who the parent names on that list.
I see.
So sometimes the department can kind of go outside that and say, well, we know if they're familiar with the family enough. But yes, they would then start going down that list when the children are removed. Now, right. Step back a little. So on that family-based safety services, there is something called a child safety placement, where during that time, the court's not involved yet, a family, a grandparent can care for that child while that parent is needing to do some of those services. And that's where we really are looking to. That's
what I wanted to know.
Invest in more.
Interesting.
If we could do that to kind of before the courts get involved, before it becomes a legal type, you get family court. And then that you just lose a lot of control over some of that. So your foundation exists to fill that gap, is what you're saying. So for the kinship is, let's say the child is put temporarily with the grandparents. You're providing services to the grandparents for the child, in that regard, right? Yeah. So as we went through this, and we had other, our sibling groups were young, old, different circumstances, family, local. They were from different cities. We had some that, like I said, reunified with their parents. We had two that were adopted by some other local people. We had one child that needed to be separated from their siblings because of the trauma they were going through. They needed additional support and resources that we could not provide. Okay. So they went to a therapeutic home. And so we've also had children that were reunified with their parents, and then a month later they were removed again. And so multiple placements and that sort of thing. So we're trying to minimize that. So as I went through this, it was really a crash course. I mean, we experienced all the ins and outs, all the highs and lows of this in about 5 years. Okay. And so then we, as part of the licensing process, like I said, you go through a home study. Okay. Yeah, so tell us about that. It's an extensive kind of psychosocial interview that a person comes into your home. They you do your criminal background checks of everybody in the home, 14 years or older. You do fingerprints. They come in and have sit-down interviews with you as a couple, individually. They talk about your childhood, your extended family, your parenting history, your relationship history, how you raise your children now, if you have any, and your expectations of the children in your home. Okay. They go over your finances, so they look at your budget, they look at your income. Wow. They make sure you're insured. And you also have a home safety checklist. Okay. So fire extinguishers, outlet covers. Gates, if you have stairs, swimming pools. It's all dependent on the age of the children that you might be caring for. Making sure your dogs your pets are vaccinated. How you store your food, how you store your medication, your weapons, all of that sort of thing. That's extensive. It is very extensive. So it could be about 3 to 4 hours. Okay. And then they do phone references. So they'll call people, related people, non-related people, and you give them that list. And then any adult children that aren't living with you, they interview those people. Yeah. So yes, it could. So during this time we were fostering, and we ended our journey as foster parents. I then contracted or worked with the company that does these home studies for the state. Oh, you did? So I did that for about 5 years. Whoa. And so I worked in interviewed, probably worked with a little over 100 families.
Wow.
Locally, I went to Midland a couple times, Bront, Brady, even out to Rochelle, some of those down to Ozona. And I was working with these families. Majority of these families were kinship. They were most of the grandparents or relatives that were deciding to choose for these families, care for these children.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was looking through what we went through to be licensed as a foster home and what these people are going through to care for these children, that home study, almost identical. So that type of thing, all that really intrusive, extensive interviewing and looking into your kind of private lives to apply.
Right.
So kind of put them all together, home safety, all the expectations on the kinship family. So where we took about 9 months to do this and decide, and we prayed upon it, intentionally prepared our home. Yeah. And as much as we could, learned as much as we could about what to expect. We were still unprepared in a lot of things.
Oh, I'm sure.
A lot of circumstances that we were just like, I don't think this is what we signed up for. The kinship family probably gets about 9 minutes to decide, right? Whoa. So they're going to get a call, especially with emergency removals. Yeah. So they're going to get a call middle of the night. They get the call saying, hey, your 3 grandchildren need a place because we had to remove them from your daughter's care, your son's care, whatever. Right. Because of this, so will you take them? I mean, 10 out of 10 times, these people say yes. Without it, they don't ask, what do I have to do? Right. Or they're just like, yes, bring them here. And we're good. So the majority of the people that I do these home studies on, the children are already in the home.
Okay. Yeah.
So the department will do an emergency evaluation of the home, kind of make sure it's safe and there's no significant concerns there, and go ahead and allow, just do a quick approval of that. And these families don't realize then, oh, by the way, in about a week, someone's going to be calling and knocking on your door with this whole list of other things that you're needing to do. And all the requirements, and you're going to have to get this outlet cover fixed, or you're going to have to get a fire extinguisher, smoke detectors. I mean, if I could hand you the list, and if you went to your house right now and tried to, you're like, oh, I'm not right. Yeah. So, so there's a few things that they go through.
It's crazy.
And so you line them up. Same thing. So they don't have any time to prepare. Where we had no idea of the circumstances that these children or these families are facing prior to them coming to our home. Oftentimes the kinship family kind of knows something has been going on. They kind of know there's they might have been caring for the child before. Right. I had to do a few interviews and go into some homes where the child had basically been living with this grandmother since they were born. Wow. They were kind of the babysitter. They were the date. They were they were doing all that pre-care while the parents went to work or did whatever they did. And so they had been caring for them forever. But now the state comes in and says, oh, are you really? And now you have to go through all these hoops to be approved. And we've had some circumstances where even the child had been in that home for several years. They did not pass the home study. Whoa, so the child was then having to be placed in a foster home, which I call stranger care, which is not, I see. And what we do too, when we advocate San Angelo Family Network, we talk about, we separate kinship and foster care. Okay. Totally different. We are 100% laser focused on kinship caregivers. I see. Yes. And making sure that their stories are out there. So those things will happen. And then, so they get approved, but the child is already there. And then sometimes the families do not know, the grandparents didn't know what their own,
I see. Right.
Some of your grown children, what they were doing. I had no idea. I knew it's something, but they really weren't in my life at that time. So now they're having to go through kind of the grieving process. So they're losing part of that relationship. They experience shame, embarrassment, guilt. Oftentimes they think they're the only ones going through this. And of course they don't want to share this with other friends and family, and they're trying to keep it. Oh no. But once once the child enters the system, that physical and wherever that child is living becomes, in the eyes of the state, a child care facility. So a residential child care facility. So that's why all of these requirements are placed over that home, even to the point of who visits the home.
Oh, wow.
So there's a list of frequent visitors.
Sure.
So any frequent visitor that comes to the home will require a background check.
Whoa,
so now any babysitters,
yeah,
any
that's
people
good.
that are around, which is great, which is definitely needed, but it's very hard to explain to these individuals that have been like, wait, now I have to, I kind of have to block out people or can't. Yeah. So we try to walk alongside them and help them navigate the system. And so again, lining them up, lining these things up with us as a licensed foster family, and then a kinship family, and all the same requirements. They're having to get them to school now. They're having to get the doctor's appointments, to any kind of counseling that is necessary, and advocate them at the school. So now they'll have to attend any meetings at the school. They know they also lose, I'll talk about grieving, they lose the joy of being a grandparent.
That's right. That's exactly right.
They go back to being a parent, and they kind of lose that identity. And there's a whole shift in the family tree as well. So
what do you mean?
So you have say it's my son that has lost his children. I'm caring for my grandchildren, but now they become really on the same level as my biological son. I'm caring for them as
even if it's just temporarily, like a year or so?
Yeah. So even then, and that's what we try to do when we stepped in, and that was our philosophy, is like, we are there 100%. As soon as they enter our door, they are our children. And that's something we weren't prepared for. We weren't as diligent in helping our own children understand what this would be like with fostering. When you bring in children of hard places, you bring in children that have been parentified. So our 7 and 5-year-old, the 7-year-old had to take on the mother role, the protector role of her younger sister because of everything. So she felt that was her responsibility. So she felt she was resistant to anything from either my wife or my daughter that was in the home at the time. So felt reluctant to talk with them, or hesitant to show anything, because it's like, no, are you coming in and taking over what I'm doing? She couldn't even be a 7-year-old.
Wow.
So working with that, so helping kinship caregivers understand that. So we learn to look at these families and these children through a trauma-informed lens. Okay. To meet them where they are. Right. Okay. And to see, because a lot of times these children will come into the home and they will hoard food. Yeah. Because food insecurity. They don't know where their next meal is coming from, and so we allow them to have little snack bags in their room.
Cool.
And that's sometimes, that could, some of the rules of a kind of a regular functional household doesn't necessarily apply. Wow. To you got to work with these children and help them understand a routine of a home. How to get their needs met, how to and make sure they know that they're getting what's called felt safety. Okay. That they can go, that these caregivers, these people, these big people that are 3 or 4 feet taller than them, are there to protect them and help them move forward. So I kind of go back.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Yeah. So, foster care sort of gets a bad rap, and I just want to know what you think. So, back in the day, it was a lot different, I'm assuming. And, things happen to people in foster care. And when you talk to somebody, and if they tell you their story and foster care happens to be a part of it, it's almost like, dang, I'm sorry, and that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, of course, it's not an ideal situation to be taken away from your parents. Right. But, I mean, I guess what I want to ask is, how do you feel it's changed over, say, the past 20 to 30 years? And what kind of, what's the ultimate goal for a foster parent? What are you trying to do with the children? Just make them feel safe? Are you trying to give them life skills and make them feel a part of your family? That kind of.
Yeah. So definitely, back 100 years ago or 70 years ago, we call orphan care or foster care at that point was through the churches.
Oh,
so the state wasn't involved at all.
I see.
It wasn't, that wasn't their responsibility. I mean, not responsibility, but really they weren't equipped to do it. Over the years, the churches have really stepped away from it for one reason or another. I think have dropped their responsibility in working with these families. And so from my own opinion, I think the state had to step in because it had become such a colossal failure. I mean, you can go back to from the orphan trains. I mean, how they put orphans in train. Now these are orphans, right? Their parents were no longer living. I hesitate. Some people call this orphan care ministries or something like that. These are not orphans.
That's right. Yeah.
These parents are still around. They're they're given the opportunity to take care of whatever issues that prevented them from being safe parents they can do. So the state came along and created this system to where people could then care for these children as needed. And so 20 years ago, there were more foster. It was pretty short term. It was but you still had a lot of the many group homes. You had more facilities that would take just kind of dump these children into a building.
Do they still do that?
Well, not as much. I mean, you have residential treatment centers. You have some community homes out there. West Texas Boys Ranch is similar to that, but you have structure there. You have parents, kind of professional parents that understand there, and these children the ratios are a lot smaller.
I see,
like children to caregivers than previously. So moving forward now, the states then they were doing it all, and then these agencies came to contract with the state. So you have child placing agencies that are out there.
I see.
That they work with the department to kind of train and recruit and train foster parents. And then there's a large database, and when children are when there's homes needed for these children, then they look at and say, okay, we have this family here. And so they kind of place them with certain families. But I'd say, and when we were fostering as well, that was one of the things we faced, is that there are no child placing agencies that are located that are headquartered or have an office in San Angelo. So our first agency was out of Midland.
Okay.
Now they had kind of a satellite office here, but if we had anything that we needed to do, we had to travel to Midland for some things. Another agency is based out of Abilene. Several are based out of Abilene.
Okay. Yeah.
And things like that, and some in Lubbock that they'll have a presence here. But not necessarily a autonomous office, if you say that. So that kind of put in some difficulties there.
Yeah.
But our role, like I said, we came in and understood that when these children are removed from their parents, the parents are given 12 months. Reunification is the number one primary goal.
That's good.
Of this. Okay. So that oftentimes that gets lost in some people when they enter this field, this mission
they
field.
Get attached and want to.
They can get attached. You will get it. You
it's probably hard not to.
You better. If you do not get attached,
something's wrong.
It's wrong.
Really?
This is a mission field. I consider it a mission field.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
And some people do missions for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. You pour all your heart and soul into something for 2 years. You're going to leave something behind wherever you did that mission.
Right.
Wherever that ministry was, whatever, you're going to have that. You just got a piece of your heart. I believe God gives us a capacity, a part of our heart and soul to leave with others. Wow. And this is part of foster care. So foster only to do that. And it is difficult. It is heart-wrenching. It is, you will suffer what's called complementary trauma. So it's trauma And it's kind of compassion fatigue and all those, a lot of first responders and people in ERs when they're in high impact, high trauma type situations that you will experience from an emotional and that attachment. So so like I said, the 10 children are still in my heart. They will forever be that I'm there. Those families will be. So one of the things we try to explain that a pastor kind of let on, Jason Johnson is really good with when he's talking about foster care and fostering and orphan care and so forth. But he talks about we're not the hero in this story. Okay. First of all, Jesus is the hero.
That's right.
Jesus is the hero.
Yeah.
He'll always be you. You're not bringing the children of these families into your family. You're stepping into their families. You're stepping into their brokenness.
That's a really
Jesus
neat
never
way to look
brought
at it.
us into his world.
Right.
He stepped into ours.
Yeah.
In the hopes that one day we would be able to step into his
exactly.
world, right?
Yeah.
So very difficult.
Yeah.
It is a whoa. I mean, and it's hard to contemplate some of the things that and like I said, the system, the state simply is not equipped to do it without the help of the community, without the help of, I feel like the churches need to step back in.
Oh, do you really? Yeah.
So I look back, we talk about when recruiting foster families, and we don't have enough foster families for the number of children that need it. So a lot of those children are being sent out of town, out of state. We have, I think, 10 to 15 children right now that are living in another state that could be here.
Oh man, that's hard.
But when I go back, I say, but the data is we actually have enough foster home, licensed foster, trained foster parents.
Okay.
But they've closed their home. Like us.
Oh,
so we could
see.
But we have closed it for one reason or another. So either you're just burned out,
right?
Maybe you've adopted and you don't have capacity for that anymore.
Well,
so that's
I want to ask you, why did you and your wife feel drawn to be foster parents? Like what pushed y'all to do that?
And that was through our church. So we were at Paul Ann, and there was some, sermon or talks about that, and just kind of laid it on her heart to bring us to kind of investigate that and start looking like that. So and that was our role. We were foster only. We decided we walked alongside the parents. We stood with the parents in the courtroom. We would have them in our home. We would be talking with them on the phone. We would be, because I always wanted to meet the parents and say, let them know I'm here for your family. Right. I'm here to care for your children until you can get them back.
Is that pretty important usually?
I think it's critical that those parents know that we're on their side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That we're not here. So foster only, great concept. It's for the most part, we were the professional parents by the state. Yeah. Similar to if you send your child to a daycare, you have professional caregivers there to care for them. So we were there using techniques, using strategies that we learned to hopefully, to as much as possible, have a positive outcome. We call it positive permanency. Okay. Which could be reunification or adoption. I see. With somebody else. So, so that's a segment. The foster to adopt, a little bit different, because in order to adopt from the state, you have to have cared for these children at least 6 months. Oh. And so you're trained in the kind of the fostering world, but also the adoption. So I see. A lot of times it's a different dynamic. Yeah. Oftentimes you're looking to grow your family for one reason or another. It's hard to get to do that full attachment because you're not sure if this child will be here or not. Yeah. So, and then you really have to work within yourself to understand that reunification is the primary goal. Don't come in here thinking, this, I might be able to adopt. This looks like a great case where I might be able to adopt this child. Did that happen to y'all at all? We were never. So the two little girls that came to us that first night, they walk in the room. I was having a conversation with the caseworker, and the caseworker said, "Are y'all sure you're not foster to adopt?" I said, "No, we're foster only." "Oh, well, I think these girls will be adopted." And they were not.
What did y'all think of that?
16 months later, they were reunified with their dad. Yeah. And I said, well, you're kind of a conflict of interest. Right. Especially the caseworker.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I didn't know, we were still new at this and
yeah.
didn't know all that. But when I heard about they do parallel permanency.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do that. So, and it's difficult for the caseworker because while they are trying to work with the parents and reunification and get them to understand what they need to do,
Mm-hmm.
they have to be looking for other placements just in case the parents
That's right.
fail,
Yeah.
right? So it is kind of a split personalities with the caseworkers. There is a lot, so much placed on these caseworkers in some regard by the state. So we're walking alongside these kinship caregivers. I'm seeing the requirements, and the key thing, my jaw drop, was when I saw the per diem. You get subsidized for caring for these children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What's that about?
So as a licensed foster family, foster parents, we receive, it's right at about $27 per day per child.
Okay.
Okay. And that's the care for them. That's to clothe them, feed them, transport them.
Yeah.
All of that. So right, for 30 days, that's a little over $800 a month for a child. That's a basic level. There's 3 different levels of care: basic, moderate, and severe. Yeah. So there's, and your pay is based on that. But now most placements, you're going to get basic care. So 20. So now, as a kinship family, as a grandparent, most of these grandparents, most of the people, the caregivers, the kinship caregivers I work with are on a limited income.
Do they get that?
On retirement. They get Social Security.
They don't.
Medicaid, something like that. They receive like less than $13 per day per child, less than half. What the licensed foster family receives.
Wow, yeah.
So they might receive maybe $400, less than $400 a month, and it depends on their income.
Oh, it does. Okay.
So as our family, both my wife and I are professionals, working, good jobs, income, that income, no matter, we still get paid that no matter what.
Right.
Kinship family, there is a threshold. Say if you make more than this, we're not going to subsidize.
Wow,
it's just, it was just, I said, you have to be kidding me moment.
Right.
In this. And then they are not, we receive that money the first, the day the children come in our home, we receive that money. They pay it like a monthly thing.
Is it like a check or?
Yeah, they'll send it a direct deposit or something like that. Yeah. Kinship families, they will not receive that monies until the home study that I was doing was completed, approved, and put into the court. Which could be, they could be caring for those. I had some with 3 or 4 children in the home, and they had been caring for them, and they'd have to care for them another month and a half till they received any financial assistance from the state. There's got to
be a better way,
Really does. And that's what we're hoping. There's a few legislative bills out there that are looking to do that. We're trying to waive some of the requirements from what do we really need, on this kinship care? Because if they've been caring for a child for 5 years, and then we come in and there's a criminal history chart, and because the grandparent had a conviction back in 1970 for something, there's like an automatic bar of placement.
What?
It's like,
oh man,
and you're just like, wait, can we not use a little common sense here?
Yeah, exactly.
I had another home that I did, and they were out in a rural community, and so it was the grandparents and the aunt was living in the home, and this child had been in their home. Hardworking family, responsible. They had the references were like, you couldn't find a better family, better set of grandparents. They've been caring for the child for several years. The aunt was in the home and almost became a surrogate mom to this little girl. Mm-hmm. So when we come and do the home study and the background check, on the aunt, who wasn't the primary caregiver, but just because the aunt, she had a certain criminal conviction, she was no longer allowed to live in that home.
It threw up like a red flag because it was a danger to the.
And it was. There's some list. There are some true things that we do not need these people, even though she had been there. And so she had to move out of the home, which caused some trauma on the child.
I bet.
So it wasn't the child that was leaving the home, but it was one of her primary caregivers that were having to leave the home.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we're trying to do is raise awareness. We do with San Angelo Family Network. We do provide some financial assistance as we are able. We do try to connect them with other agencies here.
Yeah.
The Contra Valley, there's advocacy agencies out there, the Workforce Commission, those people try to help them understand that these are what you have available. Through their Medicaid program, they have certain things they can receive. The YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, they provide discounts and and oftentimes these caregivers, they're embarrassed or just afraid to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're like, wait, I don't want, so we try to stand with them or in front of them to help them and kind of provide a path for success. So like I said, help them understand that this will probably be a 12-month process. We hope that they can, care for the children. Research is 100% supportive of healthy and supportive kinship families. If you take outcomes and look at positive outcomes with foster care, stranger care versus healthy and supported kinship home, those kinship homes, the outcomes, positive outcomes far outweigh anything you can provide foster care.
Yeah.
You maintain just family relations. You maintain, keep siblings together.
Right.
You maintain their cultural heritage.
Yeah.
A lot of times you keep them in the community.
That's right.
Those type of things. Now, sometimes kinship home is not the appropriate place. That the families or anything like that, they're just in a state of dysfunction that these children need to be somewhere.
Yeah, I get that too.
Just take them out. So there is a definite space for foster care, especially therapeutic homes.
Okay.
That can.
What makes a home a therapeutic home?
So therapeutic home is going to require several more levels of training.
I figured.
And it's almost, you need to be a person that can stay at home. You're an in-home caregiver for these children. Do they do a
psych evaluation on both levels?
So at the basic level, you get, they call it a 3 and 30 different exams and tests that you have to do with medical, dental, and psychological, depending on your age.
Okay.
And then our sibling group that we had, their behaviors were fairly extreme, and we did take them to additional psychological testing, and that was when they were considered, they needed a specialized home, and so they were moved to a therapeutic home, and that's somebody that can just be. And we'd almost become that, because I was having to leave work every day to pick them up from the daycare. Really, on the weekends, we were with them pretty much 24/7. I mean, just having to support, just having to help them understand.
That was the initial 2 girls that you're talking about?
No, these were, this was another sibling group.
Okay,
2 little boys. And this one, he was 5 and was just such severe anger and anxiety and just total loss of any sense of what he was. I mean, you don't know what this is part of. So the home they came from, their home just was pretty much going 24/7.
What do you mean?
And they just,
it was just chaos all the time.
People in and out.
Yeah.
No set bedtimes. No turning out the lights. Turning down noise.
What does that do
so
to a child?
So they just fell asleep wherever they wanted.
Yeah. No structure.
They would grab a bag of ramen, eat it right out of the bag, uncooked, because that was wherever their food was coming. So you lose a lot of that, the connections, what we see from birth to 3, birth to 5, your connections that you establish with your caregiver, with your mother, with your father, the eye contact, just the holding, just being held, that felt safety again, just knowing that those hugs, the opportunity to make mistakes where someone can catch you instead of make mistakes and it causes just, more damage. And so, the children that come out of these, they have a difficult time forming lasting relationships.
Okay.
We often see these children, so out of foster care, out of even kinship care, they will age out of the system. And then if they're not supported, or if they don't have healthy tools to cope, then there is a significant high percentage of them becoming incarcerated.
I was going to ask you that.
They're homeless. They will get into drugs, and the sex trafficking is just high, because they have no stranger danger. So one of the little girls we cared for, anybody off the street in any setting, if they gave her just a, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Her whole face would change to be like, this is my person.
Like overly receptive.
Overly receptive with no idea. Again, there's no, oh yeah, someone would come by, hey, get in my car. They, that's what these children haven't been taught those type of skills or boundaries.
Yeah.
And so we try to help the kinship families as well to help them understand this, because a lot of times you'll talk to the grandparent and they say, oh, they come into my home all the time. They've been over on the weekends. They'll stay in the summer. We have great times. And they listen to me, no problem. Not understanding, well, when they went back to their parents' home, it was just chaos.
Right.
And they didn't see them enough to know. Yeah. It was always a honeymoon period, right?
That's right.
It was just like, give them candy, but it's not until the grandparent the parent has to start doing the consequences and establishing rules and doing that when the child is trying to push boundaries or push limits. The grandparent's like, oh, well, I'm just going to send you back to your mom. You can't do that as a grandparent. That's the joy of a grandparent.
Exactly.
I can keep them for the weekend, send them back, fill them with candy, or take them to all these movies and things like that. So we try to help them with that.
What other services do y'all offer?
So we like I said, we're building it's called the Connector program.
Okay.
So this is where area businesses could reach out to us, say, yeah, I want to be a part of this, and they will offer discounts.
Nice.
It could be a buy one, get one free. It could be the child eats free at the restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
It could be a 10% discount on an oil change.
Yeah.
A haircut. We've talked to some hotels like Candlewood Suites. So we're looking to build also these staycation packages. For the caregiver.
Nice.
So that because you have to have certified babysitters to if they want a weekend. So we're like, hey, we have this group, or we'll set up babysitting or care for these children. Or if you want, the whole family can go.
Okay.
And y'all can go and stay here in town, go to the hotel for the weekend. Here's we'll put you up in the hotel. Here's a restaurant. Here's a couple activities.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Next Level, or go to Icon Cinema or something like that. And create this list that then they can choose their own adventure.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
And then also to build up those babysitters that can care for the child whenever the caregiver needs it. We have a couple churches in the area. They do provide foster parent nights out.
Yeah.
We do have a support group. Justin and Chelsea Smith through the Vessel, they put together a foster kinship and adopt support group. And so they have, during that time, it's great because they can go, the caregivers can go and they provide childcare there. And then, like I said, the churches will have a foster night out, which is great. However, a lot of times it didn't meet our schedule or the caregiver schedule. So you're kind of having to rearrange just so you can do it. So we want to have it to where we have enough resource and capacity to where a caregiver can call and say, hey, husband and we're going to do this. And give us a week or something. Give us for this day. We're going to go to this party. Yeah. Do you have a babysitter for us?
Okay.
And we can schedule babysitters and time.
That's great. Yeah.
So very similar. The WIT program, they provide tutoring services to children in foster care. And so the tutors, they're for the most part, they're ASU students, but they have to go through a background check and stuff like that so they can interact. So that's very similar. We want to do the same type of process to where we would have that free babysitting for these families.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just critical to this. It's and moving along this week, we talk about most of them. These are grandparents or relatives as caregivers.
Yeah.
Kinship can also be anyone with a significant relationship with that child.
Oh, so it could be like a friend of the family?
We have seen friend of the family. We've seen teachers that have cared for these children. We've seen, just neighbors, things like that. But we're trying to make sure that when these children come into these families, that again, they are supported. And the department uses the word kinship a little too loosely sometimes, or that significant relationship.
Right.
So the experience we had last year was a friend of ours contacted us, and she said, well, I'm caring for a teenage girl. And I know y'all are, so we kind of walked through and I said, oh, how do you, is it a niece or is it a family member or whatever? Who is this? She goes, well, it's a friend of ours. A friend of ours at church. Mm-hmm. It's their daughter's daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like, if you can, what is it? The Kevin Bacon, the separation.
The 6 degrees or whatever it is. Yeah.
The degrees of separation.
Yeah.
So the degree of separation is like each time it goes another degree, this becomes less and less significant.
Yeah. Does it become more dangerous?
Well, so risky. The girl was brought to the home, and the caregiver, our friend, said the caseworker was there about an hour or two and just kind of getting things set up, signing some papers, and then she was gone.
Yeah.
And this was really the first time that she had met this girl.
Okay.
So she really didn't have that significant contact.
Right.
So right there's, you're putting both of these people at risk of not something. So,
right. Yeah.
So she cared for her. And she had been brought from a residential treatment facility in another town.
Okay.
So saying again, okay, she wasn't just like removed and she's just, she has some issues that required her to be in a treatment facility for emotional or psychological type issues.
Yeah.
So this lady had no idea how to handle, wasn't given a lot of that information.
Yeah.
And then, so she's there, she has about 2 weeks, and it's about almost every other day she would just call saying, I don't know she's having all these problems.
Wow.
We're just going back and forth. And of course, it's much more difficult caring for a teen who's gone through, and she had no idea her history, how many times she had been moved around than a newborn child or a child that, just an infant. So about 2 weeks into it, the lady, she gets a letter, in the mail from juvenile justice explaining to her about this girl's probationary terms.
Oh, wow.
She had no idea she was on probation.
Goodness
Didn't know
gracious.
all of this stuff. And so and it was extremely, she said, I don't want to give up on her, but I said, you're not giving up on her. They did not provide you the right tools. They threw you out in the ocean with a bunch of meat and you're trying to fend off these sharks. And you're like, you're not, they did not give you those tools to be able to do this. And so she was pretty much set up for fail. So she did, she had to, let them know.
Yeah.
So I go back to this and I look at it too, because, the black and white of it is, the objective way to look at this is cheaper. Kinship care is cheaper for the state of Texas.
That's true.
It's right there. You can't wash away that or blur it in any way. It's it's more than 50% cheaper.
Exactly.
From that. So they oftentimes will look at, if they have a kinship, if they have that possibility,
they'll push for that.
Do that. And so 2 little girls we had, they had been when they came to us, they had been placed with a grandparent. About 2 weeks, she was not able to handle them or work with them. I can't. Worst things to experience would be, not even knowing that your own child is having problems where their child is removed, but then when you want to care for your grandchildren, you cannot.
Yeah.
And it's not like all the ones I interview, they have no idea. First of all, the kinship families, they have no idea there's even any money.
Yeah.
When I tell them that, oh, by the way,
they're thrilled probably.
No, they're not like,
they're getting some help.
This is, I'll tell you, and that's the way when foster care and that, they get that, they always look at, they're just doing from, I said, these people absolutely 100% no way are in. It's a godsend. So they're appreciative of that. Even though I'm like, should be getting more.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm there to advocate that way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get seen as they're, money hungry or greedy, but I'm trying to think, I think we have so with these girls, they were with a grandparent. They then went to a foster home for a couple months. Then they went to another grandparent and then back to this foster home and then to us.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So that was
and
5.
These were the first girls that y'all?
No, that was our third.
Okay.
Like there's two little girls,
and how
sisters.
Did that go?
So, and research shows and it's fairly, it's just common sense that anytime you're separated from your primary caregiver, it's like the death of a parent, right? If you're growing up, you lose a parent, that trauma.
Yeah.
Most significant trauma you can experience.
Wow.
And they experienced it 5 times when they came to us. And every time you go through that, it's shown that you can regress 6 months academically, socially, behaviorally.
Mm-hmm.
So if they came to us, they were 5 years old. They've already had 4 placement disruptions. That's 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they regress back to bedwetting, to soiling their pants, to thumb sucking.
And
to
how old
their
were they?
behaviors, like 5 and 6 at that point. But you have to then, instead of, a lot of people that don't understand that will be like even grandparents. They'll be like, oh, okay, they're wetting the bed and they're doing all this, or they're thumb sucking, or they're now, they're scared of the dark, or they walk around with certain things they won't let go, that they're acting like a 2-year-old. I said, well, that's where they are right now. Yeah. And they need that time to get back on that. And it's not something that's just like,
how do you get them back on track? Time, but what else? Counseling, what else?
Just time and counseling. And again, there's something in our community, which I'm extremely excited that we have. Judge Watkins is our court judge, or family court judge. Yeah. And so she'd be great to have on here as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
cool.
She is, she came to us from the Tyler, Texas area, in that area. And she implemented in her courtroom, it's some strategies that was built out of from TCU. Okay. Their Department of Child Development. Dr. Karen Purvis developed a system. It's called TBRI. Okay. And it's trust-based relationship intervention.
Interesting.
So TBRI. And her book is called Children from Hard Places, Dr. Purvis's book. Okay. And when we started reading it, it was like, is she looking in our home?
Are you serious?
Is she here? Because these are things and she goes in the scientific piece of it. She does studies with their serotonin, their dopamine, all the chemical reactions that are helping the eye dilations when they're going fight, flight, or freeze all the time with these children that have suffered these traumas. So what Judge Watkins did in her courtroom, and Tyler is now doing here, is all people associated with these cases will be in some way aware, knowledgeable of the TBRI practices.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, and use that language. Okay. And when I talk about coming to people or coming to children or the families or the parents from a trauma-informed lens, similar to when, doctors do that. Doctors don't just look at you and, say, oh, it looks like your leg's broke, good grief. But they, hopefully they'll go, okay, why did that happen? Or let's say, so it doesn't happen again, or so a better path to healing. Right. If we can understand and appreciate that trauma. Yeah. And walk alongside and help these children understand that it's the way they're feeling now is okay. It's very difficult. Like I said, I go back to the physical. If I see somebody with a broken leg or in a wheelchair, I'm going to open the door for them. Right. I'm going to have a little more grace. I'm going to be a more accommodating.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And we know people with the emotional trauma and the physical trauma, but they've suffered emotional trauma. You can't see it.
That's right.
You don't know. Yeah. You kind of, by behaviors or understanding their story, you're kind of, assuming there's going to be some things. So how do we accommodate? How do we show that grace as well? So in TBRI training is what they do. There are some strategies depending on the age, depending on the level of trauma and so forth, that you work with these children and give them the coping skills that they'll need once they become adults and once they become parents as well. Because that trauma, it will not leave you.
I know. Well, I wanted to ask you, do you know this? How early can a child remember a traumatic event and it affect them? Like, how early? Because some people say oh yeah, your 2-year-old's never going to remember your 3-year-old, but do you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, when that trauma occurs, they may not be able to articulate it, but from birth.
You're kidding.
So from birth, if they are removed from their primary care, especially from their mother, if they're not able to be that interaction. So how many hundreds of thousands of interactions you have with your newborn when you're just holding, you're just eye contact and things like that. Now we see the same thing for children. They're not necessarily removed from their parents, but from day one, they're placed in a car seat and put in front of the
Yeah.
TV, and there's no engagement with them. And there could be a lot of different reasons for that. And so when we deal with that, but that significant removal, whether it's a death or a removal or that trauma, so the children will see that there will be higher levels of anxiety or behavioral issues at certain times of year. So that could be the day that they were removed, the day that the police came in the home, the day that the caseworker was there, that all these other people were there, that then they were placed. Oftentimes with our area, they're having to be placed with a caseworker for maybe they do a child watch.
Yeah.
So the caseworkers have to rotate to watch the children until they can find a home for them. So oftentimes that's in a hotel room or something like that.
That's right.
And so, or if they're put in an emergency shelter, all of those things. So there's that trauma, and that helps regardless of the trauma. I mean, if you've suffered any significant trauma, things like that, car wrecks or something like that, or
but you're
things
saying
like that, your subconscious will
that's what I want to
kind of key in and say there'll be certain smells.
Oh my goodness!
There'll be a sound. There'll be someone says something or they see somebody.
Yeah.
You'll notice a change in them. They might not go totally off the deep end, but there will be some. Okay, hey, this was that. This is when that happened or something like that. So that's
the reason
that's part of it. But
I want to share something with you. So I have a 2.5-year-old, and the mother of my child, that we decided to split up, and there was some drug use involved, and there was an incident that took place. There was sort of a domestic incident. Nobody got hurt or anything like that, and nobody, hit anyone or anything. But there were family members involved, me, her, and my son, and it was a very traumatic experience for my son, just because there was a lot of chaos and he didn't understand and never, seen him or heard him that way. And so I literally think about it daily. I think about, he was 2 years old, and I think, will that affect him? Is he going to remember that trauma? Because it was traumatic for me, and it just scares me. So essentially what you're saying then is, he might not remember, details, but he might have a physiological reaction or subconscious some connection to it.
That's a possibility. We all have pathways to healing, and we cope with our own traumas, and everybody's experienced significant things. There is some that's called the ACEs study.
What's
it's
that?
The Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. And this is one of the largest, most extensive longitudinal surveys that's ever been explored. And I think it's over the 40 years that they've been tracking these individuals. And so there's an ACEs survey, and you check off if you've ever experienced some of these things as a child.
I see. Yeah.
Some of the things you talk about, things like that. So, and based on your number, again, it's it's not like, no, that's my identity forever and for more. Yeah. But it gives you an idea. It's like, okay, that's why I feel like this. So what will I do about it? What are some resources I can do to help me with it? Not to say that's who I am and it can't be changed. It's not cemented in you. Yeah. But it's a good way to then provide some foundation and a baseline to then work toward that healing.
Yes. Okay.
So I kind of go back to that because I'm the trauma I experienced. So when the children were either reunified with their parents or removed from our home, 1 or 2 times they were done within the day. We were given no notice.
Whoa.
And the next day, and one of them, the children were sent back to their parent, which is again the goal. Right. But there was no transitional for us or the children. And the children are just expected to just figure it all out. Yeah. So I was notified, and I had to go to the school of the children were in 3 different schools. I had to go to each school and explain to them who's coming to pick you up and what will be happening. We talk about resilience. Yeah. Right. And so there's resiliency, there is plasticity in the brain. The brain can reformulate, at certain ages. So I think they say use about 25 is when your brain is done. You can still learn new things, but you'll have to have additional coping mechanisms to be able to handle certain things. So, as far as they knew, that that they were just kind of, I mean, this was their life. So it is sad that there wasn't that, some of that's just what they do now. Unfortunately, I will go back. So this particular group and I know you had a guy on the other day on fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl. So, and this is something with as a foster only family that you probably will never, you hope to be able to connect with those children again or families.
Yeah.
You might, but oftentimes you will never see them again or know what happened to them.
That's right.
Unless you kind of look, you can online some things or keep up with their parents or whatever. So, a couple months ago, last year, about this time, I guess, I was just like, oh, I wonder what happened. So I kind of went, found their mom that was on there, and she had posted that Julius, who was the older one, had been poisoned by fentanyl.
Oh,
so he died.
That's horrible.
Right before his 17th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Last year. And so really, because you just lose that part. And that's part of me that'll forever be. And so, but then you blame, then you go, did we do enough? So what could we have done, or what, I mean, and I remember him. So I would say, some of the things you go through, the negatives, but the positives out there. I mean, he was one of the most, just engaging people, charming, entrepreneurial, cool. The things he came up with, the ideas he came up with, and I still have. So every day I drop them off at school. I'd say, okay, make somebody smile, be a friend. Let's give them some positive things as we walk that.
Yeah.
So one day, leaving for work, and I'd take my lunch to work, and Julius was in the kitchen and he was making my lunch. And, I was like, okay, cool. Now he could be a little manipulative, like, okay, what do you want? Which is fine. That's what we all are in some degrees. Yeah. Okay. If you're going to charm me a little bit. And so I get to work and I take out he made me like a peanut butter sandwich, and I pull out, and on the Post-its he had written,
what did he write?
Make somebody smile, be a friend,
that's cool.
love you. So I still have, so that's been.
You still have it?
It's been 8 years, still in my lunchbox.
Oh,
so those 5 Post-its are still in my lunchbox. And will forever be in my heart. And you hope God gives you enough in your heart, like I said, to give yourself to these families and give these people that. When I think about, again, what Jesus did for us, an unconditional love, true unconditional love, that he died for us, came, lived with us, died with us, was spat upon, knew that we would still be who we are, even after he did that.
Right.
And again and again, over and over. And so I think truly when you're in the foster care ministry, that is unconditional. That's as close to unconditional love I think you could, for me, that I could ever get. That knowing that I'm going to pour into them, not expecting nothing back.
That's exactly right.
And almost be seen in the public eye or in the media as a negative. You never see foster care. There's some movies out there now, but for the most part, foster care has been seen as like, it's like Annie, Little
I know,
Annie,
that's unfortunate.
Where they're all in there, which I think there are some, possibilities in there. So, but we are moving, I think, forward, like, and that's why I'm pushing this community-based care now.
Yeah.
That's the community-based care initiative, which in this next legislative session, we'll be talking more about those bills as they come out. But with our group West Texas Together, we hope to formulate and kind of rebuild and almost take back some of that within our community.
Nice.
And so build that foster care, the support for kinship care, the support for adoptive care as well, to help. Because oftentimes the adoption families, once they adopt, they're kind of, again, the department or the state says, okay, fly, be free and fly. But even after adoption, you're still it's an ongoing journey, working and parenting and loving on these children and these families. So we want to also understand that journey as well. So it's a whole lot. It's called a whack-a-mole. Sometimes we're just trying to figure out how best to do it. But I honestly think if we were able to get the churches back involved, we have several churches that are.
In what way do you think would be best to have them involved again?
Well, so we talk about. I go back to, say, if you have a friend and at work or something and they have a baby or something like that, you get that email and say, we're going to have a baby shower. We're going to have a meal train. We're going to have a GoFundMe. Something like that. We're going to go, hey, sign up to go do their laundry or mow their yard. Okay, so, or if they're sick or if they're in need of help, these people need this help. So when you bring in, if you're fostering a child or if you're a kinship family, bringing in a child, that's what we want to do as well. Say it's almost similar because that day one of that child being in your home, whether they came out of your womb or came out of an office, that you need things. There are things that you probably haven't planned for. And so we want to be around there saying, hey, we're going to sign up. We're going to get you a meal train going. We're going to, we talk about wraparound services that we want to do and really wrap around these families. And so they have a resource network that they don't have to create it because there is a way for these kinship families to get the same financial subsidy that licensed foster families get. They have to become licensed foster. They have to go through the same training, do all this additional stuff, which makes no sense. However, but my question has always been back to the legislators, like, okay, so when we were doing this, we didn't have any children. We weren't dealing with the department. We didn't have lawyers come in our house. We didn't have CASA. We didn't have we didn't have to do medical. We didn't have caseworkers. We didn't have all this stuff back and forth. And so we were able to manage and take some time out of our day to go do these trainings. You're asking these grandparents now, while they have 3 or 4 grandchildren in their home. Now they're having to go do this training and do all this other stuff while managing that and figuring out things. So it's ridiculous that's the obstacle from them receiving the same amount. Even though we know without a shadow of a doubt that the outcomes are way better when they're with that healthy I say healthy and supported family. I always say healthy and supported kinship. I don't just say kinship. Because that could be that could be just a person off the street that you barely know that they could do. So they have to be healthy and supported and continued. So that's our mission, is to do that, is to tell the story, be there to speak for them, whether it's this, which we really appreciate,
of course,
going to local, I've been to the Rotary clubs, I've been to Lions clubs, whoever will have me, I'll go speak,
absolutely,
and let people know, it's got it little by little, but I also feel like churches can develop that then, kind of. Short answer, making it longer. The churches can develop those wraparound services. Paul Ann, I use them as an example how they've developed a great international ministry mission type thing. So if you decide, so I decided I was called to go to India on one of their trips.
You did?
And so cool. so signed up for that, let them know, and it wasn't like, okay, here's your ticket, see ya, right? Which oftentimes kinship care is like that. I answered the phone. Yes, I want to take care of my grandchild. Okay, here's your grandchild. See you. So it was probably 6 months before the trip. We had meetings. We had prep meetings. We were talking about, okay, this is what we'll be doing. We role played because we went to these villages and told our story and did some testimony and things like that, and an invitation and stuff like that. So we were kind of it was strategic in what we were doing. They were building churches in these villages, so we knew we would be working with the leaders there, but in going in homes. And so they all prepared us. We were doing some role playing, what's going to do here, what you don't, what you say, all this cultural type things. Preparing you for it, because there was money to be raised to go. Here's how much it is. So you need to go out and start getting this if you don't have it. Paul Ann, they have a fund so they can help with that as well. So it was really very supportive, and people wrapped around you. So as people heard, this group, we had about 10 of us, I guess, that went. Other people came alongside us from the church to pay and pray for us. To be there saying, okay, you'll be gone, but I'll be here to help your wife and the kids. And so do all that. So that's very similar to when someone, and that's what I say, it's a mission field. Like,
it makes sense.
And some people they might live overseas, or some people, okay, we're going to spend 2 years, like we have the Rosser family that goes and they drill wells in Uganda.
I know.
We support them. We pour into them.
That's right.
So, and we've had other people that have gone, okay, I'm going to go for 2 years, and we pour into them. So it's the same thing. So it's like you need we have over 100 churches in San Angelo area right now. Way less than that do we need foster families.
Right, yeah.
So if each church could just invest in one foster family.
Right.
Or to say, this is a mission field and we want to develop it in the same way we were if we're sending somebody to India, that you would have this. We would have this training. We'd walk alongside the department, do some of their training, but we would have some extra. We would have even more work with TBRI training. We have several people in the area that are certified to teach in that TBRI.
Nice.
So we can provide classes for that. But like I said, going back to our West Texas Together, what Judge Watkins is doing from a community base. I do see, we always need to be prepared for if it were to come back. If the state one day said we're not funding this anymore, right? What would you do? What would you do? So we do have this kind of community-based care bill coming out, but we're also preparing, okay, what if that does not pass? That doesn't mean we just stop, drop, and roll out of here.
Right. Yeah.
We kind of want to build this community up in a way that we've seen in several, I think around Grayson County, around Sherman, Texas, there is a private foster care community. So they've built houses. They receive no state or federal funds. It's a foundation, and they've built a community, and they've prepared parents, caregivers, similar to West Texas Boys Ranch. I mean, very similar in the way that's organic growth in what they're doing, and based on grants or donors or things like that. So you can kind of have that local control, have that community values instilled in it without being told to, what you can and cannot do and how you can do it. And there's other churches. There's an initiative out of Dallas. It's called Safe Families. So these are people, so you can almost go through the licensing process to be a foster parent. But as what you do is you don't just care for the child, you care for the family. You take in the mother and their 3 children.
What do you mean? You literally do?
You bring them into your home and you become a surrogate.
Oh my goodness. What do you think of that?
Love it.
That's a great idea.
If, when I think back at some of our families we worked with, the family with Julius, it was the mother and 3 children, and she had relied on her husband, boyfriend for everything. I mean, he was into some trafficking of guns and drugs and stuff. So money was no object. So oftentimes children come into your home from extreme poverty. These children were coming in they were wealthy. They had no needs. They were not, there was no food insecurity, no homelessness, blah, blah. But then the dad, he was then, they were busted and put in, so he was sent off to jail. So that income stream, and she had no job skills to speak of. So she fell apart. Went into just drowning herself in alcohol and ended up her little one had wandered off and was found like in diapers in freezing weather. And so that's what caused the children to be removed. And so, but at that point, when you look at their history and say, from all we could tell, they were never, ever in danger before that. I mean, guns and drugs, blah. It was a recipe for something.
Right, exactly.
But for the most part, they were managing the family, and they were cared for and sent to school and fed and all that stuff. And so she had some parenting skills. But so that was one where I thought, you know what, if we could have brought her in with us, because we had an extra room, they could have stayed on this side and just and the kids would have been there. Because sometimes it'll cause even more difficulty with reunification when the parent doesn't see the children all that often.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it's so
interesting.
It's difficult because, and she actually, because she would show up, she would kind of accidentally show up at church.
Yeah.
One day we're at church and we turn around and we had a kids church, where the kids would go, and then the big people church, whatever. So so the kids that day, hey, can we go to big people church? I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They want to experience this more. I'm feeling all like, well, I'm really doing my role here. Well, apparently they'd relayed it to the mom that they were going to be there. So she ended up right behind us. So we're greeting people. I turn around and there she, I'm like,
So
it's hard, it's like that. You're like, I've seen her somewhere before.
Yeah.
And the kids just turn around and like, hey, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, they didn't just like jump over the chair into her arm.
Exactly.
They didn't look surprised.
Yeah.
So we're just there that was at the beginning. So at the whole service, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, you're trying to, I have no idea what.
Yeah.
Pastor Kurt talked about that day.
I love Pastor Kurt. He's good. Yeah. He's funny, man. I love his storytelling.
Outside and she's outside.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Grace.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yeah, hey, this is kind of weird and all this blah, blah, blah. So we went ahead and went out when we went to eat somewhere, but I was talking to her. I said, I'm not sure how this all happened.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know that this cannot happen because there are strict guidelines and boundaries and you have to abide by those.
That's right.
Because I see it so many times that if the department thinks you're not following their rules, they're going to take those kids and send them to Dallas.
That's right. Yeah.
And she was out in the middle of that area at the time. So she had to travel in to do that. So she was making the effort.
Wow.
She was doing it. I said, I understand what you want to do. I know you miss, but you cannot circumvent these rules.
Yeah.
Now we're in the system.
Yep,
and that's why I want to do, like, if we had a safe family where you're bringing in these families, the court's not involved, there's no legal things, or there's some requirements, but it's like, hey, and I think it's up to like, they do it like a 90-day type of thing.
I think that's so cool. Yeah.
But really, when you talk about it takes a village, that would be.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have so many of those people in San Angelo now that are doing that.
Yeah.
Without support. And they don't want support. And they're like, you could come and say, we have this figured out. We're multi-generational homes here in San Angelo that are doing extremely well. Mm-hmm. And that's some things we want to also gain some knowledge from.
Absolutely.
How does that work? How are you able to do that? What are some strategies we can help these families with that, you guys seem to be killing it with that. And some people want that or they desire it. Some people are like, I wish I'm ready for my kids to get out of that, be empty nesters.
That's true. Well, let me ask you one before we get out of here. Well, so how often, let me be specific here. When it comes to sexual abuse and children experiencing that in their home, or maybe it's a neighbor or whatever, but they're living with their parents, biological parents, how often is it that foster parents take care of children that have experienced that? Is it on the rise, do you think?
Yeah. So, the data shows reasons for removal when you look at that. So overwhelmingly, I don't know specific percentages, but I know it's 60-70% of removals are due to neglect. So some type of neglect. So I equate that to just not being ready to parent, not being a good parent, making some, and I also say we're all like that degrees of separation from being in the same circumstance. If we didn't have those people around us those supported bad decisions that we made, that we all, we've all been involved in something that's like, you look back and say, wow, if this person went there, this person went there, to kind of be there for me, it could have been much worse. Yeah. And so neglect is key. So that is something where it's unsafe home. Yeah. It's probably, they're not getting them, it could be physical, not as much abuse as like physical. Oftentimes when you see the posters or see the commercials, it's the black eyes and that sort of thing, hospital visits, and that does occur. But for the most part, it's going to be unsafe homes, drug use in the home. It could be domestic violence between partners, not necessarily that the child is not involved or not harmed, but there are significant things, and then homelessness. There's things they want, that we have programs from a preventative measure to help with that, so we don't get to the last resort is the removal of the child from that home, the absolute last resort. So when I get the home, when I'm looking through these family histories, and majority of them have had family-based safety services presented to them. So the department has its own office of family-based safety services, and caseworkers that have that. So these are working with them, telling them what they need, very similar to what they have to do if the child was removed. And the child might live with somebody else at that time, or they might stay with them.
I see. Yeah.
However, this is all voluntary. It's kind of like, it says speed limit's 35 out there, so don't go 35. Well, people still, they'll take advantage of it. They'll kind of go a little, okay, no, let's say 35, but I'm going to go.
Right.
I know they told me to go to ADAC. They're a huge part of this because they have the classes and they have the programs.
They're
so
amazing.
a lot of times these parents are assigned to those programs to get clean, and then the domestic partner violence classes, and whether you're the aggressor or the victim or things like that. So all of these things. But again, you're not mandated to do it. There's no court order doing it, and your children are still with you, and the child might be with a grandparent. So I've seen a lot of times, so the child will need to be the grandparent. The grandparent's told, now you cannot have contact with the parent during this time. You need to keep the child away from them, and only approved supervised visits as well. So that sort of thing. Again, from a caregiver perspective, like, okay, but they really want to see their child, so I'm just going to meet up with them or have them. If they come to my house, I'm going to let them in.
Okay.
Well, if they violate those terms too many times, then that's when they'll do a removal because they violated that FBSS. So they're no longer, they're skipping the class. They're not taking the classes. They're supposed to, test clean for drugs or whatever. Or they're not submitting a hair follicle or doing like that, or they're not seeking jobs, blah, blah, blah. So it's really not until when the court comes in, but the thing of that is, once it becomes a court case, you lose a lot of that control. Everybody loses a lot of that control because now you're in this system. Now you're in a pretty much a conveyor belt of things that you will have determined by family law. It's state law how this is processed. So there's really not wiggle room into where we are, how long this will take, or that you go and you have your first hearing, and you're told that, and you'll see a lot of times kind of the look, the parents, the color drains from their face a little bit, but then by gosh, they're going to do great. So the first 2 months, they do great, do everything, kind of that honeymoon period, and then something happens where they kind of they regress, they backtrack a little, and so then that's when it really gets difficult, because then they're seeing that, this might be a permanent thing where my children will be removed. And you're constantly, every time you go before the court, you're constantly being judged. You're constantly being, I don't know how that would be if every 3 months I was called before a tribunal and listen, while I was raising kids, how I was doing. Or people, and then people checking in on you, people going to your house, people making sure you're doing this. And then as a caregiver, we as a foster parent, we didn't have any control of the system. We could only do so much. So there was frustration on our part because there were some things we were seeing that were like, y'all are losing sight, or y'all have already made a decision here. So we want to advocate for the family, but also knowing our role in the whole proceedings. So it's a whole, there's a lot of different things that are there, that a lot of good things that are happening with it.
That's good.
A lot more that can be done. So I'm always about, thank you. Now, how about this? Thank you. This is great. Now do more.
Nice.
And we're really looking to develop a sense of urgency within our community about this. To be able to be more, look up a little, look up around your neighborhood, look around your church, look around your community, your work, that you will see people in these circumstances. And to reach out and be a part of that. So as we move forward with our initiative, one of the things, and we talk about this legislative session, so there's, it's 140 days that starts January 14th. And, and it only comes around every 2 years. So it's a condensed type of deal where we got to figure out, and you have all these other people standing in line with their bills and their particular concerns. I saw one bill now being presented to manage, or to the limit of train length, the length of a train.
Really?
So that's one of, right now, I think there's 2,000 bills out there, House and Senate. So that's one of the trains.
Oh man.
But but on my my website, sanangelofamily.org.
Okay.
I have posted a 89th legislative session page.
Awesome. I'm going to put your website right here on the bottom.
And it has a bill tracker.
Okay.
So all the bills, so I'll go through there and I'm tracking any bills that have something to do with family preservation, child welfare, the foster system, the department, kinship care, those type of things. So I have a page with that. And that as we move forward into this session, to be able to reach out to our legislators and just, help them, walk alongside them as well. They need information. They need stories. They need to know exactly what this means. Now, the length of a train, I can visualize that. I can know, crossing Bryant. We need maybe, I don't know if it's too long or too short. I don't know what the bill is, but sometimes being able to say, because like I said, and from our perspective, it's kinship care. It's what are we doing with these families? Like the foster, they have their own movements. Sometimes it overlaps, but we want to provide that story. So so moving forward, that's what we want to do. So when we look at that, the model that we're coming up with is when we talk to legislators, I say, but these next 140 days, we talk about the next 2 years because we won't see it in another 2 years. But really, those 140 days, that's going to determine the rest of these children's lives.
Oh, it is.
The rest of these families' lives. So there's some things that we need. And I know we have, like I said, we have some children in Arkansas right now. So if particular bills are passed and appropriations are made, then we can go ahead and bring those children back to this area. We can start that healing process. Yeah. And that sense of urgency is what we're really trying to communicate through this.
Wow. So, man, this has been so great. Is there anything that that local residents around the Concho Valley can do? Anything they can help with what you guys are doing? Is there any message you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I have also a page of resources, local resources on sanangelofamily.org. Like I said, various agencies are out there. We do have New Horizons, Children's Hope is out there as well. So we have our West Texas Together. So I think it's West Texas Together. There's a website for that. So you can sign up for a newsletter to get updates on that. And just communicate, go out and, one of the huge things I think in a lot of our schools, just be that the big brother type of thing, big sister, or go, San Angelo ISD has the volunteers in public schools, the VIPS program. I would say be a part of that. So I think our children really need to have more positive adult models, role models out there, and just to be able to lean in on these people. And if you have a family in need, just let us know. Just drop us an email. I have a contact us on our website that you can submit, and we'll reach out to them and go from there. So I would also say, we have so many resources. The Foster Closet of San Angelo, they're moving into a new facility, which is great. We have the Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
Nice.
They build beds for children that are in need, not just foster care, but any needs. A lot of these Rush Street ministries. I mean, I could just go on. Children Advocacy Center, they've now have more services there, and they're looking to build their parenting education program. Very similar to that. So, and I'm always open to new ideas or people. And if you're a local business that wants to provide a discount or something, please let us know, and we will connect you. Isn't that clever?
Okay, cool. So lastly, I do this with everyone. Tell us 3 things that you're genuinely grateful for right now in your life.
Oh, wow. Truly my family, grateful for where I am, made it. I mean, we've had some incredible medical issues the past 2 years, especially this past year. My wife is with me, and she's always my biggest fan. Couldn't do anything without her. Again, my family, and just grateful for what I'm seeing in this community. As we're starting to build this, I'm praying for more patience on my end.
Okay.
With that, but I know this is kind of as we go from this grassroots level to the impact that we have the potential to make. That's 2. So I'm grateful for, just today, I guess, the day that each day I have the opportunity
Yeah, absolutely.
to do this or to talk about other things as well.
Yeah.
So, what are you grateful for? What are 3 things you're
Oh
grateful
man,
for?
nobody's asked me that on the show. That's funny. Let's see. I love gratitude. So I am genuinely grateful for my family for sure. It's a blessing to have people that support you and stand by you no matter what. And then to be able to do this, there's somebody the other day, another question I ask sometimes is what do you enjoy most in life? Like, what's it all about to you and what drives you? And somebody said, dialogue, having good open dialogue. And I said, man, that's right. That's what I love. That's why I love this, And, so that, and then my son, just being able to have a good relationship with him that's growing, and it's such a blessing. It's amazing.
That's fantastic. I like that. Open dialogue is
right.
Cool. Like every time I do this, I learn a little bit something about myself.
Yeah.
And then it helps me tailor the message, or I can go back and say, and some of the things you brought up I've already like put them in the back of my mind saying, I don't need to do things. So it helps me kind of as we move along. So it's fantastic that you guys are kind of doing this and building this.
Thank you.
This is, really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Sure enough.
All right, guys. This was great. This was Patrick Dierschke. If you would like more information, I'm going to put the website at the bottom. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And remember, if you'd like